Welcome, whether you're joining us live or you're joining us later in the archive. I'm really excited about today's Confianza Live video. We have a very special guest with us today, and the topic is all about honoring students' identities through building metalinguistic awareness. And I'd like to introduce our guest, Dalila Mendoza, the EL Director of Taunton Public Schools. How are you, Dalila?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to hear from you today and to share your wealth of experience and knowledge and really, really practical advice with our viewers. So really appreciate you being here.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Sure. So as Sarah said, my name is Dalila Mendoza, and I'm the EL Program Director for Taunton Public Schools. So this position is very close to my heart because I grew up in Taunton. I'm also an EL. I'm a former EL student for the Taunton Public Schools, and I'm passionate about this work with these students because I know what it feels like to be an L. My parents are immigrants from the Azores in Portugal, and so I'm first generation here. So I truly know the struggles of being an L, and I wanted to do this work in order to advocate for the Ls and have a program where they are most prepared for post-high school pursuits, and really using their language as that knowledge base, because that is their identity, their language.
That's incredible. I mean, just to have that firsthand experience and bring it in to help teachers not just develop the empathy, but help advance the students' education is really exciting. And I know I've really enjoyed working with you over the years. And so can you tell us a little bit about the journey that you've taken as an EL director and what you think the students need and what you've been trying to do to support your L program to become even better?
Sure. So my vision has always been for the Ls is the rigor. So Taunton Public Schools, adding that rigor to the instruction. It's often forgotten that Ls hold knowledge, and again, as I said earlier, their language, which is truly their identity. And how can we tap into that? So they have all this knowledge, they just can't communicate it in English. So, and a lot of our students come in not just with their one language that is their identity, they come in knowing multiple languages, where English then becomes the fourth language that they're learning. So now, how do we take all of that? How do we take their identity, their knowledge that they have, and really connect that with English words is essentially what we need to do. So this is where the rigor comes in. And with the rigor is the oracy, depths of knowledge, and metalinguistic that has all become a part of our work in my department with the guide of Confianza. So working with Confianza, we have collaboratively observed the classrooms. We've co-taught professional development for my staff. We take all of that and the student success and see exactly where the gaps are. And then we map out the vision of the coming year. And I love that because the vision is always shared with my staff. It's connected to my goals as the director. And lots of coaching and support is always given to me from Confianza and to my teachers from both me and Confianza. So this has now become a transparent way where we all have the same vision and are developing professionally together to better serve our students.
It's quite a journey. And I know we've been working together for several years, and I've really, like I said, I've really enjoyed learning from you and supporting your vision as the leader. I see Darlene in the chat, collaborations are great. And it's exactly right. I mean, this is complex work, and really you didn't miss a beat when we hit the pandemic. We've continued our partnership. You've continued, actually, from what I see, drilling into those three priorities you just said: the rigor, connecting to content standards and high complex tasks, and then the oracy, even ensuring that students are engaging and speaking and listening online, even synchronously and asynchronously. I've seen that come to fruition. And then that final piece that we're going to dig into today is helping students connect to their first, second language through metalinguistic awareness. So great. So let's talk a little more in depth about what is metalinguistic awareness. How have you been bringing that to your team of ELL teachers so that they can really boost students, not just English language development, but their content development and then their sense of identity? What have you done so far to do that?
So the metalinguistic awareness is, as you know, the most recent work that we've done. So in most recently reading about metalinguistic awareness, I've known of, but reading a book, which was wonderful, and using the knowledge and use of the two languages as a linguistic asset rather than as an obstacle really was an aha moment we need to add this along with everything else that we've done in our work. So you and I then took the opportunity of the school closure to offer professional development for my staff on metalinguistic awareness through the use of contrastive analysis. So we started the PD series with an excerpt from my mom's book. My mom, Manuela da Costa, wrote an operetta in Portuguese called Os Sonhos de Dona Dores. I had my staff toggle with this excerpt using the language or languages that they know to make meaning. So as you can see here, this is an actual excerpt. This is the excerpt from the book, and this is an actual slide that we used in our PD. So this was an interactive way for the teachers to feel exactly what the students feel, to take the languages that they know, and some only knew English and some knew English in another language, not necessarily Portuguese, and feel what it feels like to be the student when presented with a new language, but yet using the knowledge that they have. This is the key point, because they have knowledge inside of them, and to make connection to another language in order to make that meaning. So I thought this was a huge aha moment for my staff as well, that they were presented with something that they do not know, but yet could make connections to it and move from that. So this was the contrastive analysis PD that we had presented to the staff.
Yeah, and I know it was really exciting being part of that with you, because I know, as you said, you do have generally a pretty multilingual staff, some monolingual English only, some bilingual in Spanish at different levels of proficiency, as well as Portuguese and other languages to boot. Yet, putting them in the student's shoes and having them engage with the text in Portuguese that may or may not be comfortable for them was a way for them to try out this strategy of contrastive analysis. So you're saying in this slide, they're able to really slow down their thinking, and looks like they annotated, they really brought their connections and added their own notes there in yellow, right? Like highlighting cognates and taking guesses and so forth.
Right. And the important piece is that this is high level text. So that's bringing in that rigor. So it's not a second grade level used with adults. It's really high level text, bringing in that meaning. And it's not a lot of text, but it's meaningful text. And a lot can come out of that. Not only are they learning this language, but this excerpt has to do with women wanting to get away from their home country and go to America, because America was seen as an escape. And they really didn't care how to leave their country, because they felt as though they had to do everything at home, and America might be better. So so what comes out of that? Gender roles can come out of that. Immigration can come out of that. Learning about different countries can come out of that. So then you can take this high level text in teaching the English language, but also all these other concepts and things going on in the real world that they can make meaning of.
It's so amazing. And when you think about students' identity, you really modeled that with your staff. And as I know, and as you just shared, this is not just a high level piece of literature. This is written by your mother, an author, Manuela da Costa. So you were able to bring some of your identity into the PD and say, this is part of my story, or at least my family heritage, which again, I think that putting staff in student shoes, both culturally and linguistically, sounds like something that you would recommend. Is that right?
Yes. And also the connections that happen between people too, not just with the text. You know, so then you learn about other people, what connections did they have with this text? And it might be just one word that they all connected with, or it could be my parents went through this, or I've been through this. It could be from word level to experience level, you know? So, and then this brings the oracy part of it too. So, and allowing them to talk and engage and talking about those experiences as well.
It's so exciting. I mean, you know, we've been working together on all these pieces, and going back to the rigor, you know, you're just talking about how students, regardless of language proficiency, can access and be part of high level concepts. Like you're talking about loss, moving, gender, you know, experiencing new cultures. Those are accessible and relatable for all students. So as we think about what tips you have for teachers, administrators, coaches, how can we use metalinguistic awareness to strengthen students' identities, and how important is that rigor part of it to you, and the level of text?
So metalinguistic awareness and the contrastive analysis skill is key for the identity piece. And then the rigor comes with the type of text that you have, bringing a high level text. But the identity, they're being acknowledged. I know you have a lot in there. Give it to me. You know, it's okay that you don't know my language, but let's use what you have and learn a new language. But that language that you have is so key to you learning this new language. But the knowledge is still there. It doesn't matter what language that knowledge is in. And so then that identity becomes stronger, which then is powerful for students. And then their anxiety levels are down. We hear a lot about the anxiety that can block the learning, right? And it's a safe place. They can tap into what they know because it's applicable. So there's so many things that go with that piece of bringing their language to their learning.
Fantastic. And noticing in the chat, you know, something that I was thinking of too is it's building mutual respect. You know, confianza, that word that we use, is really important because it is meaning reciprocal power relationships. Historically, you're saying the alternative is if we jump right to English. We say English only, read this in English, think in English, you know, go in English. We think, you know, that English only movements historically have been painted around English is the only way, and it's the dominant language, and it's, you know, the most important language, and it's important to get students only thinking in English. What you're saying is, if we slow down and have, even in an English only program, you're not a bilingual, multilingual program. Right. You're honoring your bilingual, multilingual students by helping your staff slow down and do close reading with short amount of text to get students to think about language, to get students to bring in their own language, their own identity as a tool, not as you said, a deficit or even something to skip over.
Right. And I mean, even me as a second language learner, I still have to slow down and think, okay, am I writing, even if I'm writing in English, am I writing this in the Portuguese manner or am I writing this in the English manner? You know, and I was grateful that my parents really validated, and they held on to our culture and held on to the fact you need to be fluent in both languages and never lose Portuguese, because that is key. And so all of that, I've been blessed with having that.
Yes. And
there are many students that don't have that, but I want to have that program that we have that, you know, and students know that they are just, they're a wealth of knowledge for all of us, and we really need to tap in to students.
We have to, and as a leader, you've made that really clear, and it's going to be exciting to see how this continues to develop. I'm seeing in the chat, recognizing the home languages, the native languages, and seeing it as a tool, again, is critical. Historically, and I'm married to a person like this who has subtractive bilingualism. The home language has been subtracted out of people in favor of English, right? And then those home languages are looked at as minority status, and then English is assigned the majority status. This does connect to anti-bias education and social justice, and how are we assigning value to the home language? How are we leveraging it in meaningful ways that help academic learning? So you're promoting an anti-subtractive model. You're promoting an integrated model that honors students' identities and really helps teachers meaningfully use their home language. Even if we can't teach in Serbian, Portuguese, Arabic, we can teach students to think in that language constructively and use it to the best of their ability.
Right. And then the pluses that come out of that just multiply. It's as I said, the stress level goes down, and they're more engaged, and the learning becomes better. The learning environment becomes better.
Right. I love that. And the funds of knowledge are just really clear for teachers, as opposed to maybe slipping into a deficit mindset, unintentionally. I think one tip I would add, based on what I've learned from your staff and the work around this strategy before we wrap up, is even if students aren't literate in their home language, in other words, even if they can't read and write in, say, Portuguese or Vietnamese, whatever that L1 or L2 or L3 is before English, that's not the point. They might have those literacy skills so they can recognize cognates and how it looks, but they can also explain, oh, we have an idiom like that in our language, or right, yeah, I actually know how to say cup in my home language, and it's similar, even if I can't write it, right? So there's ways for students to engage at different levels of proficiency too.
And that brings in the 4 levels, the 4 domains, right? The language domains, which all have to be a part of that. So yeah, that's a huge piece.
The reading, writing, listening, speaking has got to be in every lesson. So I just wanted to tell our viewers, if you're interested in learning more about Dalila's work and our general tips that we've learned this semester around teaching online, we do have this particular piece that she just shared with us in part 2 of remote teaching tips for supporting ELLs. And thanks for putting the banner up so we can go there, as well as blogs on heritage language, blogs on bilingualism, simultaneous versus sequential bilingualism, and the danger, right, of subtractive bilingualism, as we've discussed, and on and on. So we're here to support you, and we hope that this was useful for you. There's been some exciting comments in the chat that we're really valuing your participation, either now or later. So please have a wonderful summer, everybody. And Dalila, I hope you're going to have a really nice, relaxing summer after all this hard work that you've done.
I hope so too. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Obrigada.
De nada.
And we will to be continued. Hopefully we can have you back and talk more about your journey in the future.
I would love that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dalila.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.